Hello warriors, it's Bebe and Toro here. Welcome to the Warrior Enclave, where we shatter our silence, share our stories, and believe women, period. So I'll ask, having journeyed through, time and space, and step by step, reaching different milestones in the healing process, what is the current posture that you have towards your abuser and their family? Is there any forgiveness in there?
No. Mostly because I don't feel I have to. I don't forgive. That is just the simple fact. The things I went through, the things that were specifically done to me, it is unconscionable. No human soul, no human being deserves any of what I went through. And so for me, I don't feel the need to forgive. I don't dwell on anything from that era, because I found a way to process everything that I went through. I found a way to navigate through the healing. I put in a lot of work, guys. I put in a lot of work. It was no joke. The things that I had to do to get out of the space that I was boxed into by everything that happened to me. It was no joke. But I navigated my way quite well. I took my time. I dug deep. I went past even everything that happened to me, and I went all the way down, even back to my childhood, things that I had locked away. So I had to process a whole lot about my life. And so I was able to navigate through all of that and arrive to this point where I do have peace about everything that happened to me. I do have peace. I don't have any regrets at all. Not one regret at all. Not because they weren't painful, not because they weren't hurtful, not because they weren't harmful. But for me, I just have so much pride in my journey. I have so much pride in my life. I have so much pride in my life and the direction that I know God is taking me to, that I don't feel the need to be hung up on all those things that happened in the past. I don't forgive because I don't need to. It wasn't necessary for my healing, if you get what I mean. For me, I've moved on. I actually processed everything and I've been able to move on, and I have my peace. So that's it. Forgiveness is unnecessary, and in any event, I don't forgive. So yeah,
I think there's a lot of nuance to the term forgiveness, and I mean people throw the term around as if there's some kind of universal understanding of what forgiveness is, but I feel like it's one of those things where there's a personal relationship with it. There's a personal understanding of it, and there's a personal interaction with the whole concept and how you apply it to yourself, your life, to individuals who may have harmed you. And so I don't know. Even asking the question, I'm like, what does that even mean? Do you forgive? There are some things that are unforgivable. And I don't think anyone is owed forgiveness. I don't think forgiveness is something that is, if you don't do, then you won't heal kind of thing. I don't think it's a deterrent to it, to moving on to processing. And if anything, I think forgiveness, at least in the general kind of understanding of it, I think the person most deserving of forgiveness is often ourselves. And that's who, the effort of forgiveness, that's who should be forgiven. Honestly, yourself. Because like I said, some things are unforgivable, and to even mention forgiveness almost seems insulting or reductive to the size and the scope and the scale of what needs to be forgiven. And this goes beyond just like interpersonal relationships. When you think about things like misogyny as a whole, and gender-based violence, racism, and what enslavement, chattel slavery was to Black people. I don't know. Forgiveness is a here or there kind of thing.
For sure. I think something you said there about forgiveness of self, I think that was something that I was able to tap into, because I know that I went through a period of self-abandonment to even be entangled with the kind of individual I was entangled with in the first place, and to have spent as long as I did, spent about 9 years, just short of 10 years. You know, I physically remember the many times that I was abandoning myself to remain there. And so I had to take accountability. I think that's what I wrestled with the most in my healing, was the accountability that I had to take. That was a painful pill for me to swallow, you guys, because it was very clear who the villain was in all of this. Like that is not even up for debate. And I think that's why the podcast itself was even the most important, because I had to paint the clear picture. I had to say everything, the complete truth about the individual I was dealing with. And it is very clear who the villain is in this story. But that being said, I had to then look at myself and the things that I tolerated, the things about me that made me susceptible to that kind of chaos, you know. And so that was difficult for me, because I was like, but I'm not the one that did, I'm not the, you know. But I had to, and that's why I said that honestly, in my healing, I had to even go past even the relationship in the first place. I went past all the way down to childhood, things that I had locked away, things that happened to me that were kind of spreading me or prepping me for the kind of abuse that I then found myself in my adult years. So the biggest key was when I finally arrived at the point of being able to apologize to myself, being able to forgive myself, being able to even be grateful to myself for getting me out, for getting me through, for digging deep, for finding it somewhere within myself to fight, to win, to recover. I think that was one of the biggest keys for me in helping me to move on. By the time I faced myself and looked at everything about me 360, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I was able to reach a point of self-acceptance, then I was free. And I think that's what it is really. You know, forgiveness is, I think too many people haven't even sat down with that word well enough to even understand what it means, and then they now inappropriately apply it in areas that it shouldn't even be applied, and then they find that, okay, they say a verbal, or they feel they have to forgive, and then they still don't have peace, they still don't have rest, if you get what I mean. So I think I've wrestled with that concept well enough, and I've arrived at a place that is comfortable for me, and I have peace with it, and I'm able to move forward with my life with I don't harbor any ill will, I don't harbor any hate, nothing. But at the end of the day, I wish everybody the life they deserve. Period. Finally, I think there is a final point, or there are final points that I do want to make, in that part of why I don't dwell on anything about what happened or what's happened in my life, over the course of the 34 years I've been alive, is that I know the truth. I know the objective truth about everything that has happened in my life. And so I don't feel the need to prove that to anyone or anything. I just simply have been able to anchor down on truth, on the truth from me, and I've left the distortions to be distorted. Really, because anyone that is interested in bending this and manipulating this and twisting that doesn't care about truth anyway. So why are you going to waste your breath trying to prove anything to anybody, if you get what I mean? And so if you're able to do that for yourself, where you know the objective truth about something, once you've been able to parse that out for yourself, move forward. There's no point in trying to prove anything to anybody. Come and see, and if you get what I mean. I know I did that a bit with the with the podcast and everything, but honestly, I had to drop that somewhere. I had to drop everything that I had to do somewhere. And the good thing about that podcast is, the moment I actually put everything down on that podcast, I did not feel the need to now keep talking about it to anybody or anything, if you get what I mean. I've been able to move forward. It took a while, because you will ruminate, you will analyze. Funny enough, I had listened to the podcast earlier this month, for the first time in a very long time. And as I was listening, I actually recorded like a level of growth to my healing as well, because initially that podcast, it was like a rumination fest for me. I would listen and it was like I was reliving every moment. It's like I was still wrestling with everything. I was grateful that I had the podcast, because there were things on there that, I could still be wrestling with even after the recording. But being able to listen to it now in this state, like I even commented to my sister that I felt like I was just a listener. Like, it didn't even feel like I was listening to myself, the person that had gone through these things. There was so much distance. Like, I was listening to the podcast from a third person's point of view, and that to me was, I was so elated to have even discovered that oh my God, I didn't feel that tug as if it was me that was going through everything. So I think anchoring down on truth, putting it down somewhere. I think we've said this before in one of our earlier episodes, whether you write it down, whether you record it, whether you put it on video, whether you write a book, if you find a medium to dump everything there, then it's easier for you to press forward with your life. You wouldn't feel the need to keep trying to convince people, or even worse, convince your abuser of what they did to you, if you get what I mean. Another point that I did also want to make is the fact that I also arrived at the conclusion. It took me a while to arrive here, but I arrived at the conclusion that it actually wasn't personal. As painful as everything was, as hurtful, as harmful, as as abusive as the marriage I was in was, it just occurred to me one day that it actually wasn't personal. It wasn't personal at all, because I think initially I felt targeted. I felt like it's because these things were done to me. Then, it now just occurred to me that it actually wouldn't have mattered who this guy married. The very things that were done to me would have been done to them. And once I understood that, or once that just clicked, that little piece just clicked in my brain, I was able to feel free, and like it did something for me that I was not even expecting, in just realizing that it simply wasn't personal. If the person should remarry, the next person. My mom always says this Yoruba proverb, pé pàṣán tó lu ìyàwó lé ló sì máa padà wá lu ìyàwó kékeré, which means like the same pankere that beats the first wife is the same pankere that they'll use to beat the new wife. So because the issue is not the wife, the issue is actually the person, the problematic individual there. So by the time I just was able to just move on from that, to feel that, I was able to move on and be like, oh God, like, because at first I was taking it personal, like how dare all these things have happened to me, but it actually had nothing to do with me, whoever. And when you look at abusers, it is a pattern. You may just be either the first in line or the middle in the line, or the last. You're just somewhere in line of the long list of people that they are abusive to and they have been abusing. And so once you're able to take yourself out of it and not feel personally targeted by it, then you're also able to move on from that. The final point that I also definitely wanted to make. Sorry, before I make that point, did you want to say anything, or you're good?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the final point that I also wanted to make was kind of the opposite of the earlier point, which is part of my looking at myself was I understood that, quite frankly, it didn't even matter who I chose to marry. It would have been the wrong choice regardless. And you know, the reason why I say that is I look at the time I got entangled in that relationship. I was 22. I had just turned 22. I got married I had just turned 26 when I got married. But all that while, I was unconscious. I was not conscious of who I was. I didn't know who I was. I wasn't tapped into my internal world. I had been carrying a lot of trauma and baggage from my earlier life that I had never addressed, I had never looked into. On the outside, I looked like a successful individual. I had been doing well all my life in school. I had achieved a pretty high point at that point in time in terms of my education. I got into a really hard law school to get into. My life was on the up and up. I had friends. I was plugged into community. On the outside looking in, I looked like I was doing well. But on the inside, I was not. I was in complete misalignment with myself. Complete misalignment. And I didn't even realize. I knew that there was something amiss, but I had never ever looked inwards to really, really address it. So my getting into the marriage that I got into, because it was such a pressure cooker of abuse, it forced me to start addressing some of all these issues that I didn't even know I had been carrying all my life, and that is why on my exit, when I was able to escape, I then began to deal with everything over the course of my life. But to my initial point of it wouldn't have mattered who I married, even if I had married some other person that wasn't an abuser or that wasn't abusive or whatever, I know for a fact that the things that were within me that I hadn't even addressed, the misalignments that were within my soul that I hadn't ever really, really looked at, would have also made even that marriage an unsuccessful one, if you get what I mean. So I also take accountability in the fact that it didn't matter who I married or who I chose. I was not in a position to be choosing at all. Which is why, to be honest, my heart really does break when I see young women getting married. Young women, like people just fresh out of school. I'm like I feel scared for them, because most women, might be a controversial point, but most women, I don't think should be making such life-altering decisions, such as getting married, having children before the age of 30. And even that 30 self is an arbitrary number, because you have to have been doing the work. You have to have knowledge of self. You have to have been in therapy. You have to have addressed some of your childhood traumas. You have to have a strong sense of, you have to have been building a strong sense of self before you even get to the point of deciding if you want to share your life with someone, if you want to bring life into the world. So for me, again, I take accountability in the fact that, looking back, I know that I needed a lot more time than I gave myself to even be committed to any kind of relationship, to even have been bringing children into the world. I needed a lot more time than I gave myself. And so it's no wonder again that, I had to navigate all those challenges that I navigated through the relationship I was in, because even on the inside, there was too much misalignment. And so I am also grateful for the time that I've had now to piece myself back together, to be in proper alignment with myself, to have the strong sense of self that I do now, to have a strong connection to who I have always been since I was a child, to connect everything together and to be standing here today like a complete individual. I'm grateful to be here now. And I certainly have more trust in myself now. If I were to make life-altering decisions, I trust myself now to make those kinds of decisions for myself. So that being said as well, I'm able to detach. I'm able to compartmentalize everything. Look at it outside of myself and understand the meaning that runs through all of them. And with that, I'm able to move forward with my life.
So for women and femmes, it really, really cannot be stated enough. It cannot be overstated enough what my sister was speaking to about knowing yourself, discovering yourself, and being anchored in yourself. Because just look at the world that we live in. The minute that you're born and you're born feminine, and you identify as feminine in this patriarchal world, the cards are stacked against you the stakes are life or death on sight, just by you being who you are and being immersed and steeped in a world that is ruled by toxic masculinity and patriarchy. The intent is to kill, and we see it over and over and over and over again. We talk about the statistics when it comes to gender-based violence. We talk about the statistics when it comes to femicides, when it comes to rape and sexual assault, and the entitlement to women's bodies, be they children, babies, old women, corpses. The cards are stacked against you. And so with the waves, if you're not anchored in self, the waves of the indoctrination of patriarchy and the brainwashing are going to buffet you left, right, and center, and you will just be like a leaf in the wind. Not only would you end up making deleterious decisions for yourself, but you will find yourself aligned against womanhood, against femmehood, upholding you by default. If you don't tap into yourself and know that I'm a woman, I'm a femme in this world, this is how I need to have a container for myself and know where my boundaries end and where the external world begins, and just be very comfortable and familiar with who you are. You will, if you're not doing that, you will automatically be recruited into being a cornerstone, a brick in the wall of patriarchy, and you will pass that on through your sons, through the way you raise your daughters, and it just becomes this unending cycle. And it is why we are still where we are today, despite all this so-called progress as a species. At the fundamental level, it's still caveman things. There's polish on it, but like the underlying dynamics of everything in all across the world is women are not, your life is not valued, so you have to grab your own life yourself and value it for yourself. Otherwise, it's nothing but breakfast out there. Yeah.
I think what you said there, sometimes you don't realize that, when you don't realize the number of ways you've been brainwashed by society, by religion, by culture, by education, even in medicine. Like, there's no facet of society that doesn't kind of pit woman, femme, against oneself. Like, you don't even realize the ways in which you are abandoning yourself, you are harming yourself to uphold the patriarchy. And, we have one of our older episodes that talks about the fact that I identify as an ex-patriarchy princess. I know the ways in which I was a pick-me, the ways in which I was a bird, the ways, honestly, fully flapping, wings and all, okay? And all of that is part of the misalignment I was talking about, because deep down in my core, that was never who I was. That wasn't who I was at all. But because I had been shamed, primed, forced into operating as the Picnisha, I made Picnisha decisions and I chopped Picnisha breakfast. It just is what it is. So for me, I was so grateful when everything just came crashing down, because I was like, finally, I came home to myself. I got to remember who I was. I know who I was as a child. I know the way I was with the opposite sex, with boys, with and I was able to call back all my energy, call back all my power, and live in my truth and be the authentic person that I knew myself to be. And so, in all honesty, women, femmes, that is the biggest gift you can give to yourself. Know thyself, fight for thyself, and stand in your truth regardless of what anybody has to say. How many women have been branded with the scarlet letter all through history? You will survive, you will get through, So with that being said, I think we have come to the end of our summer series finale, the final episode. My goodness,
the warrior journey as a whole.
Yeah, the warrior universe. This is the last little point now in there, at least for the foreseeable future. Because who knows with us? Anything can happen, y'all.
Yeah, you never know. But at this snapshot in time, this feels complete. Mm-hmm. And it feels good to honor the completion, and honor that state of completion. And so, once again, we're so grateful for the audience. We're so grateful to have had the opportunity to do this. We're so grateful for the growth that has come from it, the healing that has come from it, the inner work, and the outer work as well. The transition for ourselves, and hopefully for anyone else who has tapped into the Warrior Enclave, from moving from that patriarchy princess end of the spectrum to the girl's girl end of the spectrum. You need to be a girl's girl.
Hallelujah.
That is the only way. That is the only way. The minute you see another woman, you need to fully identify with her, to be able to do what's best for her, and consequently yourself. Where a lot of women have, the intellectually, oh, I'm a feminist, oh, I'm this, or I'm this, I'm this, but there's just still this shoulder carrying that, oh, but
couldn't be me.
Cannot be me. Couldn't be me.
It could be you,
but
girl.
It is you. The minute it's happening to another woman, the minute misogyny is happening to another woman, it is you. Just accept it like that and move from there. Otherwise, your blind spots. You will have blind spots, and the universe and life will find a way to shine a light on those blind spots. And when the universe does that, it's breakfast. It's often by means of breakfast. So just get there. I am she, she's me, we are we are all. So we are all and move from there, in terms of the way you advocate for other women, and in turn advocate for yourself. So yeah, men, our warriors out there, to those who are at different points in their journeys, the ones who are still don't even know where they're going to start from.
Just start.
The ones who are still fully immersed in the sauce, our prayers up for all women out there. The ones who are fully divested on the other side.
Welcome.
Fucking fine. You know, it's not easy to get here, but you know, here we are. Thank Jah. Whew. But it's been an absolute blast doing this, and you know, we're just looking forward to the future, and you know, trying to stay positive. Life will always be life, ups and downs, lefts and rights. But, you know, we hope that we can look back to this time in our lives, look back to, this whole journey and, you know, have fond memories, lessons and blessings to tap into. So yeah.
All right, y'all. Thank you for following us on this journey. We'll say goodbye. Bye.
Alright, warriors, thank you for watching today's vlog. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to check out the Authenticity Warrior podcast on Apple, Spotify, and here on YouTube. Alright, y'all. Bye.